In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, October 4th, here in South Korea. Israel's Air Force targets Hezbollah's intelligence center in Beirut overnight as fears grow over the widening war in the region that in turn are pushing up international oil prices. And President Yoon Suk-yeol sits down with his ASEAN counterparts and the organization's dialogue partners next week for extensive talks on economic prosperity and broader stability. Meanwhile, North Korea resumes its floating of waste-carrying balloons into South Korea, and authorities here urge the public to take caution and to refrain from direct contact with the fallen debris. We start with the latest developments on the armed conflict in the Middle East. Israel's Air Force attacked Hezbollah's spy center in Beirut on Thursday. Our Lee Si-hoo starts us off.
Large plumes of smoke rose from Beirut's southern suburbs on Thursday after multiple Israeli attacks on the area, one of which targeted Hezbollah's intelligence agency. The Israel Defense Forces said in a statement that they attacked Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters, responsible for aggregating intelligence about Israel and its military. Lebanese state media NNA confirmed there were 3 airstrikes on the Lebanese capital. At least 9 people were reported dead. Also on Thursday, U.S. President Joe Biden, when asked whether he would support Israel striking Iran's oil facilities, said that his government is in discussions.
We're in discussion with that. I think that would be a little... Anyway.
Biden also said he will not negotiate in public when asked if he had urged Israel not to attack Iran's oil facilities. Previously, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had said that Iran would pay for its large-scale missile attack against Israel on Tuesday. The possibility of an Israeli attack on Iranian oil infrastructure has since caused market worries. Oil prices rose with Brent crude futures settling up over 5% on Thursday at $77.62 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures also settled up over 5% at $73.71. Both futures hit intraday one-month highs. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Elsewhere, Ukrainian forces targeted a Russian radar station using long-range missiles provided by the U.S. Our Lee Eun-jin reports.
The Ukrainian military said on Thursday that it used U.S. Army Tactical Missile System, or ATACMS, ballistic missiles to strike a Russian Nebo-M radar station. The Nebo-M radar is a system that can detect fifth-generation aircraft, like the F-22 and F-35, as well as long-range ballistic missile launches. Ukraine's military says it believes Russia had 10 such operational systems left. The military did not state any details of the strike, including when it had taken place, but said that the destruction of the Nebo-M radar creates a favorable air corridor for the effective use of missile weapons. The long-range ATACMS missiles Ukraine used were sent by the United States in the spring, when Ukraine at the time had committed to only use the weapons inside its own territory, which is also the case with the British Storm Shadow. In the past months, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been urging Western allies to let Ukraine fire their supplied long-range missiles deep into Russia. Washington has not suggested any change in its position of not lifting restrictions. Meanwhile, NATO's new Secretary General Mark Rutte, who took office on October 1st, vowed in his first speech in the post to help reinforce Western support for war-ravaged Ukraine. And just 48 hours after taking over NATO leadership, Rutte made an unannounced visit to Kyiv, where he pressured Western countries to lift their restrictions on Ukraine's use of advanced weapons to defend their country. This comes ahead of a crucial meeting of Ukraine-supporting leaders set to be led by U.S. President Joe Biden on October 12th. Rutte added he could work with whoever is elected president of the United States in November. Lee Eun-jin, Arirang News.
In other news, President Yoon Suk-yeol is poised to depart for Southeast Asia on Sunday to promote regional prosperity and broader security with Korea's partners under multilateral and bilateral frameworks. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young covers the agenda ahead.
President Yoon Suk-yeol will travel to Southeast Asia to forge a comprehensive strategic partnership with Southeast Asian nations and strengthen economic ties with the Philippines and Singapore. Yoon's office said the Korean leader's 6-day trip will begin on Sunday and finish off in Laos for the annual summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. He will first make a 2-day visit to the Philippines, where he will hold a bilateral summit with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and meet with members of the Korea-Philippines business community.
President Yoon will engage in active economic diplomacy to expand trade and investment cooperation between the two countries and support Korean firms' efforts to secure major infrastructure projects. The two countries will also discuss expanding cooperation in future-oriented areas such as supply chains, energy, defense and maritime affairs.
Yoon's trip to Manila will mark the first state visit by a Korean leader in about 13 years and marks the 75th anniversary of Korean-Philippines diplomatic ties, serving as an opportunity to elevate the bilateral relationship to a new level. On Tuesday, the president will then begin his state visit to Singapore, Korea's second-largest trade and investment partner in ASEAN, ahead of their 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations next year. He will meet with the city-state's top political leaders, President Tharman Shanmugaratnam, Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, and Singapore's long-serving Senior Minister Lee Hsien Loong.
Having closely cooperated over the past 50 years, focusing on trade and investment, the two sides will expand into areas like artificial intelligence, digital technology, and advanced technologies. In response to global economic uncertainties, we will also strengthen cooperation on strategic and material supply chains in cutting-edge industries such as energy and biotechnology.
Yoon will also take part in the Distinguished Singapore Lecture Series organised by a leading think tank to introduce Korea's Indo-Pacific strategy, the country's cooperation with ASEAN, and the prospect for peace and prosperity in the region if his vision of Korean unification is achieved. He will expand on the topic at the meeting of ASEAN leaders in Laos. On Thursday, Yoon will hold a meeting with the 10-member bloc, then attend a +3 meeting of ASEAN with South Korea, Japan and China, with various bilateral summits on the side. Amid speculation, he may hold a bilateral summit with the new Japanese Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba. A presidential official said Japan hasn't yet confirmed whether Ishiba will be in Laos, but Seoul and Tokyo are discussing a possible meeting. Finally, on Friday, Yoon will attend the East Asia Summit of 18 Indo-Pacific countries, where he will present Korea's role as a global pivotal state in defending a rules-based regional order and once again share his unification doctrine. Throughout his trip, the president will aim to strengthen political and security cooperation with ASEAN, as well as trade, investment and strategic collaborations in high-tech areas.
This will come as Korea and the regional bloc upgrade their ties to the highest level to form a comprehensive strategic partnership as they mark 35 years of dialogue relations this year. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, North Korea has resumed its floating of waste-carrying balloons into South Korea. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff earlier on this Friday warned of balloons landing within the Greater Seoul region, urging members of the public to take caution and to refrain from direct contact with the fallen debris. Now, earlier last week, the South Korean military warned North Korea of stern countermeasures should its floating of balloons threaten public safety here or should it cross a line. Details of the potential response measures were not disclosed. In the U.S., at least 200 lives are reported to have been lost as of Thursday local time in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. And authorities believe the death toll will rise as hundreds more remain missing. Search and rescue operations continue in 6 states in the country's southeast, including Florida and Georgia. But bearing the brunt of the latest weather disaster is North Carolina, which accounts for over half of the fatalities. Now, Hurricane Helene is said to be the second deadliest mainland hurricane in the U.S. since Katrina back in 2005. Meanwhile, over in Taiwan, relief operations are underway after Typhoon Krathon swept into the country on Thursday. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Cargo containers loaded at a port in Taiwan were being tossed around like fallen leaves. Shop windows were completely torn off, unable to withstand the powerful winds brought by Typhoon Krathon. The 18th typhoon of the season, Krathon, made landfall in Kaohsiung City in southwestern Taiwan on Thursday. Despite the typhoon weakening upon landfall, winds of up to 140 kilometers per hour slammed the island, damaging power lines and causing 100,000 households to lose power. Schools and workplaces were closed all over the island, while domestic flights were also suspended. More than 10,000 residents were forced to evacuate. The Taiwanese authorities say at least 2 people are dead, while 210 people were injured. 1 person is reported missing. The slow-moving typhoon is causing more damage to the affected areas, while causing flooding in some parts of Kaohsiung. However, the typhoon is forecast to move northward and weaken further into a tropical depression by Friday, bringing rain to neighboring countries, including here in South Korea. The Kaohsiung local government has been especially careful in its disaster preparations after Typhoon Thelma killed 37 people in 1977. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Korea's exports of agricultural products hit a fresh high during the first 9 months of this year. According to the Agriculture Ministry, exports surged above 8% on year between January and September this year, amounting to almost $7.4 billion. Overseas shipments of processed rice products such as kimbap soared over 41% during the same period, surpassing last year's total sales. Exports of ramyeon, Korea's instant noodles, rose some 30% to post well above $900 million, while Korean snacks jumped over 15%. Pianist Im Yoon-chan won the Gramophone Classical Music Awards for Piano in London this week. He is the first Korean to win the Gramophone Piano Award and is the first ever to have 2 albums shortlisted, with his Chopin Etude winning by a single vote. The 20-year-old pianist was also named the Gramophone Young Artist of 2024 for his probing musicianship and phenomenal technique. The Gramophone Classical Music Awards began in 1977 and honors the most significant classical albums of the year. Here on the local front, researchers are working to treat skin rashes resulting from face masks without the use of antibiotics. Our Park Gonu explains.
A patient visiting a hospital because of itchiness and pain on her facial skin reveals her outward signs of the problem when taking her mask off. A side effect of actually wearing the mask. Wearing a face mask has become mandatory to prevent the spread of infectious diseases and new COVID-19 variants, and this is causing problems with the skin under the mask.
I am not allergic to anything usually, but my face has become itchy with a lot of skin problems after wearing a face mask. It is uncomfortable since I have to use mask packs more often.
I never had any skin troubles on my face before wearing masks. I have itchiness and troubles on my face after wearing face masks.
Humid air inside the mask creates a good environment for bacteria as the temperature of the skin rises when wearing them for a long time, leading to skin problems. Researchers analyzed the facial skin of 40 men and women in their 20s to 50s with their face masks on and found that pathogenic bacteria propagated on the skin and mask due to the raised temperature and moisture. There were a total of 200 species of bacteria on the skin and face mask, and a third of them caused skin problems when tested. The researchers also detected boosting bacteria that accelerated the growth of pathogenic bacteria, revealing that this novel bacteria exacerbated skin problems in animal testing. Furthermore, they found that they could relieve the problems just by suppressing the boosting bacteria. Specifically, phenolactic acid made by human symbiotic bacteria on the skin was effective in reducing boosting bacteria numbers.
We found that boosting bacteria can worsen skin problems through animal tests. We were able to relieve skin troubles by suppressing pathogenic bacteria, too.
The research team expects to develop a new treatment that minimizes antibiotic resistance by using substances that it has newly found. Park Gonu, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. We start in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where at least 78 people have died after a ferry on Lake Kivu capsized. The ferry was carrying 278 people when it capsized on Thursday morning local time, of which at least 58 people have been rescued. According to South Kivu's governor, Jean-Jacques Purisi, on Thursday, the death toll may increase, as he said that it'll take at least 3 days to get the exact numbers because not all the bodies have been found yet. The boat was traveling from Minova in South Kivu province to Goma in North Kivu province. But overloaded with passengers, it capsized and sank only some 100 meters away from its destination. Recently, many more are crossing Lake Kivu by boat to reach Goma, to avoid land travel, as the region in the east of the country is prone to armed conflict between rebels and the Congolese government forces. While Thursday's Lake Kivu accident saw a high death toll, such incidents are commonplace in the Central African country, where overcrowded boats are often to blame. OpenAI has raised some $6.6 billion in a fundraising round, with investors valuing the ChatGPT creator at $157 billion. While OpenAI did not name its investors in Wednesday's press release, the investment round was reportedly led by a US venture capital fund, Thrive Capital, as well as others, including an Abu Dhabi-based investment firm, MGX. Earlier this year, OpenAI saw a valuation of $80 billion, already almost tripling its value of $29 billion from 2023, with the viral growth of its AI language model, ChatGPT. OpenAI, which is reportedly looking at a loss of some $5 billion this year, wrote in a blog post on Wednesday that the new funding will allow us to double down on our leadership in frontier AI research, as it would increase compute capacity to solve hard problems. The United Kingdom on Thursday announced that it is giving up its sovereignty over the Chagos Islands back to Mauritius, in a historic move that will allow the displaced residents to return home after decades. The deal, which the UK and Mauritius announced jointly, will include the tropical atoll of Diego Garcia, currently used by the US government as a military base. While Mauritius has full sovereignty over the archipelago, Britain will be authorized to exercise rights over Diego Garcia, guaranteeing the operation of the US base for the next 99 years. The British Foreign Minister, David Lammy, said in a statement that today's agreement secures this vital military base for the future, adding that it will shut down any possibility of the Indian Ocean being used as a dangerous illegal migration route to the UK. Miyazaki Airport in southwest Japan was closed on Wednesday after a US bomb, likely to have been dropped during the Second World War, exploded near the runway. CCTV camera footage captured the moment of the explosion, which a Japanese Transport Ministry official said had left a crater 7 meters wide and 1 meter deep in a taxiway next to the runway. A bomb disposal team was later dispatched from Japan's Ground Self-Defense Force, which identified the bomb as American-made. While almost 90 flights were cancelled, Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary, Yoshimasa Hayashi, said Wednesday that there was no threat of a second explosion. The airport resumed operations on Thursday morning. Kim Xiang, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. We had a brisk start to the day with morning temperatures hovering in the low teens in central parts of Korea. I mean, it was only a couple of weeks ago we got out of the tropical nights. Then temperatures should rise fast with plenty of sunshine. And daily highs will be 1 to 8 degrees higher than yesterday, topping out at 25 degrees in Seoul, Gwangju, and Busan this afternoon. Meanwhile, morning rain on Jeju should turn brighter in the afternoon. Now, brace for some minor impact from Typhoon Krathon as it weakens to a tropical depression. It could drop frequent showers in the east of Gangwon-do and southern provinces through early next week. Then morning temperatures will get much warmer next week. Now, humidity has gotten much lower as well, so many probably have started turning on the humidifier. Be sure to keep these safety tips by keeping a safe distance of at least 2 meters from the humidifier, while ventilating the room every 3 hours for at least 20 minutes. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session, and today we touch upon a gathering of the leaders of Korean associations worldwide.
뮤지컬 이터니티는 화려한 퍼포먼스, 시각적 재미, 또 좋은 노래뿐만 아니라 우리가 공감할 수 있고 자신을 돌아볼 수 있는 그러한 이야기들을 담고 있는 작품입니다.
오린 거부선 아니 12명의 파고선 전자총통은 백부전 명량한 무한도전 딱히 진지할 필요는 없음 내 승무공 역사 공부는 영화 한 번 더 보고 이 노래는 즐겨 이순신 동상 앞에 서는 동장군이 오기 전에 하나로 모여 난 새니까 날아가 영웅들아 나와라 꿀돌목 바다와 현시국은 다를 바가 없는 Red Ocean 자꾸 야만 노비 국민이라 단어 앞에 똑같이 motion 자 이제 game over 그거는 ocean 화살 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 잊지 마라 우리 안에 내포된 그 성의 DNA 여태까진 그저 동전의 하면 이제 들리는 선조들의 함성 약하지 않아도 우리 똑바로 섰지 우리의 목소리 생각보다 컸지 지금이나 그때나 두려움의 용기 타올라라 타올라 꺼질 때까지 Burn it
Impressive infrastructure. Abundance of local synergy. Reliable potential. Now here, Gwangyang-bae. With the establishment of a cluster of future growth industry, leading the South Korean economy as a global secondary battery hub. Gwangyang-bae Area Free Economic Zone.
진짱국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까? K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지. 치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지? 김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색. 김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게. 국밥? 취향 따라, 입맛 따라. 이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도
인생 그녀를 찾을 수도 있지. 제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기. 한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야. 이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
Korea is currently hosting a conference that has brought together the heads of Korean associations from dozens of countries across the world. On this edition of Issues and Insiders, we speak with two of this year's participants for their thoughts on the importance of such gatherings and their broader networks. Hello and welcome to this final edition of Issues and Insiders. It's Friday, October 4th here in South Korea. I'm Min Sun-hee. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with the heads of the Korean Association in Calgary, Canada, and the one in Delmarva over in the US, respectively. I have Jinyoung Choi, that is here in the studio. Mr. Choi, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I also have Sung-ho Lee with us. Mr. Lee, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Good to see you.
Right, Mr. Lee, let's start with some information about the conference itself, including its agenda as well as its efforts to advance the network of Koreans abroad.
First of all, it is an honor to meet such a wonderful Korean Association presidents from around the world. The World Korean Conference, which began in 2000, is an event where overseas Korean Association presidents from all over the world participate. And also, it is a place where you can feel the voice of the field on the policy through the discussions and the workshops. This year's theme is Our Proud Korean, and together with the Republic of Korea. Conference aims to build a global Korean network and puts emphasis on advancing the relationship with the Korean government and overseas Korean communities around the world to work together and to promote Korea.
Right. And that being said, Mr. Choi, what do you believe is the importance of this conference and its related efforts?
For me personally, I think the biggest importance would be the fact that, when you live outside of our country, Korea, for a very long time, sometimes we tend to lose our roots and we tend to forget where we come from because we have very busy lives out of country, being foreigner, being an immigrant. So for the government of Korea to invite the presidents from all over the world back to Korea and to join in a conference as magnificent as this, it sort of tells me that we are cared for, that we are not forgotten, and it helps us to remember our roots, for sure.
Indeed. Mr. Lee, this year also marks the 121st anniversary of Korean immigration over to the U.S. How has the role of Korean associations over in the U.S. perhaps evolved over this time frame?
In the past, we tried hard to promote Korean culture, but now we are very thankful that many show interest in Korean culture. In particular, I'm grateful that with the K-pop culture continuing to grow in each country, our Korean Association has been able to ride that trend and promote Korea even more. I'm very happy to be able to participate in the change of a generation. Thank you.
Right, a change in generation. Mr. Choi, I hear that Calgary's association, well, Korean Association that is, has a large presence, relatively large presence of young members. That being said, what would you say are the interests of the Calgary Korean Association?
I'm actually very glad that you brought that up, just because, indeed, we do have a very younger presence in the Calgary Korean Association. I believe that I am the youngest president in the world currently, and the board of directors that we currently have, we have 15, and our youngest director happens to be 21 years old. She was born in 2004 and she's currently in university. And so for us, Of course, we make a lot of mistakes, but at the same time, I would say that we're a bit more daring and a bit more bold when we try new activities, try new events, etc. So for us, our interests, I think, are very similar to other Korean associations all over the world. You know, number one being the betterment of Koreans that are currently living in Calgary. I would say the second would be to lift up the dignity of the Koreans that are living in Calgary. And I would say the last one would be for us to promote the Korean culture. Because in the end, again, just going back to the roots, we are Koreans. And me being born in Korea, it's important for us to continue to live in those roots and not forget, although I live in Canada.
Right, for sure. This is an impromptu question, Mr. Choi, but what made you run for the presidency of the Korean Association in Calgary?
I think that's a great question. Actually, the previous president before me is actually even younger than me. President Dominic Koo, who is the previous president, is 2 years younger than me, and he served as the Korean president for 4 years. Before then, that's when the generational change happened. And when he first asked me to start volunteering for the Calgary Korean Association, he just said, hey, you know, Hyung, it's okay for us to have fun while we're younger, but we can also do something a bit more important. Why don't we work on this together? And then that's how I got involved with the Calgary Korean Association. I did serve as the vice president under Dominic Koo for 4 years, and here I am. And for us, it was very important for us to sustain what we built up during the presidency of Mr. Koo, and we wanted to continue on that legacy, because if we didn't continue on with that legacy, we felt that everything that we built up so far would crumble. And not to forget, Dominic Koo had reigned as the president during the COVID times, and we were very restricted in what we were able to do. So for us we had so many good ideas. For us to continue on and try these new ideas was very important for us.
Right. Mr. Cho, would you say that the role of Korean associations, that is, in particular regions, perhaps are affected by the traits of the host countries?
Absolutely. So locally speaking, Calgary, Alberta, I would say we are blessed with abundance in resource and lower taxes, and perhaps it's a beautiful place to live in. So I've been told that Calgary was named the 5th best city to live in the entire world. Having said that, we receive a lot of working holiday students, we receive a lot of international students, and we receive just a lot of Koreans in general, but they tend to be a younger generation of Koreans. So people in their 20s, people in their 30s, people that are studying and striving for their careers. So for us, it is important to have a more oomph, I would say, with the younger generation, with the 청년들, right? For us to maybe have programs and events that are maybe a bit more catered to this younger generations of Koreans.
Right. What would you say are some of the main responsibilities and roles played by the president of a Korean association overseas?
I think it's very important to gather the Koreans together, make our presence known. So when you are living overseas, I mean, I'm sure everybody knows, but sometimes we get lost in our day-to-day lives. We have bills to pay, we have things to do, we perhaps, need to learn English. And, a Korean association might be just out of your picture, but it's important for the association and the president to make ourselves known to the community that we exist, that we're here to help, and we're here to better your lives and promote our culture.
Right. And Mr. Lee, also on the subject of roles and responsibilities, how big of a role do Korean associations in different countries play in promoting citizen diplomacy for South Korea, do you think?
We play a big role in promoting South Korea, since we are always looking for ways to share Korean culture and the positive experience through our communities. We hold festivals and try to work with other foreign cultures as well.
Right. And what are your thoughts on this? How do Korean associations work to promote citizen diplomacy for the Korean government overseas?
So, citizen diplomacy, I think there's some flexibility to that definition. But I think the most important thing for us would be for us to promote Korean culture and promote or uplift the dignity of Koreans. It's quite important because, even 10, 20 years ago, South Korea was not very well known. Right now, currently, thanks to K-pop, the Korean dramas, the Korean food, Squid Games from Netflix, we are better known now. But 20 years ago, I mean, it's a very common saying, right? When you say that you're from Korea, they ask you, are you from North or South Korea? So it's important for us to have a place for the South Koreans, for us to be known.
Right. Well, some people are saying it's a great time to be Korean at the moment, given the popularity of K-content overseas. Mr. Cho, what can you share with us about the economic ventures promoted by your association?
So I would say the primary organization that we have with regards to economic ventures would be the Overseas Korean Traders Association, also known as OKTA. This is an association that is, all across the world, and it's also very prevalent in Calgary. It's essentially a group of, economic venturists, businessmen that strive to, increase the trade, share the knowledge, share the wealth of knowledge that they have, whether it's locally, whether it's outside of our city, with other people to understand better with regards to what they do. So that would be the biggest thing. In terms of the Calgary Korean Association, I mean, most Korean associations, I would say, is a non-profit organization. So we try our best to stay neutral in this area. But at the same time, if there is anything that we can do to better the lives of Koreans, definitely we'll jump in there and we'll do our best to support whatever we can.
Do you think, going back to our talk about the global popularity of K-content, do you suppose the popularity of K-pop, K-movies and dramas has actually perhaps boosted interest in Korea among Canadians in recent years?
Absolutely. I can tell you a little bit about the event that we do. For example, the Korean Day Festival that we held in Calgary. It was held August 10th and 11th. It ran for 2 days, and it's a showcase of Korean culture with everything that you've just mentioned: K-pop, Korean food, these Korean dramas, etc. We actually had a lot of visitors come and enjoy the Korean culture with us. I would say the main thing was the K-Poppers Festival. So with this huge wave of Korean culture being exposed to our world, we essentially just ride the wave and go with the flow. It's already exposed. People already know about us, so we just showcase that. For example, the K-Poppers Festival is very similar to a show called American Idol or K-Pop Star, where there are 3 judges at the front. Contestants come and perform, whether it's dancing or singing, and then they would be judged, and the winner takes home a grand prize, right? So,
and what is the prize?
This year, it was $7,500, Canadian dollars. So and the interesting thing is, you would imagine that a lot of the Koreans would come join because it's a Korean Day Festival. But every year, we see an increased number of non-Koreans that come to join our festival. For example, this year, I believe the winner of the dance category was a performance group from the Philippines. And let me tell you, they're just so good. And they have this intensity and love for the Korean culture. And it's already there. It's already present. All we need to do is just gain a little bit from it, just ride the wave.
Right, ride the wave, as you said earlier. Meanwhile, Mr. Lee, going back to this year's World Korean Association Conference, now I understand it's the second following the establishment of the Overseas Koreans Administration. How do you assess, Mr. Lee, Korea's efforts to reach out and to better support Koreans living beyond our borders?
Holding such a conference is definitely helping with Korea's effort. Through my experience at this conference with live opinions and advices of many Korean Association presidents, I became convinced that Korean-American association in each country could develop and grow together with the Korean government smoothly.
Right, with the support of the Korean government then. Mr. Choi, this is yet another impromptu question. What can you tell me about this year's conference? I mean, what was on the agenda? What were some of the issues that were addressed this time around?
Yeah, so the agenda was, well, there are similarities to the last year's conference. This year did have some new portions. For example, there was a section called 나의 조국, My Korea, where there were some presidents that were invited to come up on the stage and share some insights with regards to what they do within their own respective communities with some of the experts. For example, we had a historic expert there, and we actually had a music expert, also an expert in K-pop. So conversations like that sort of help you to understand how we can promote our Korean culture a bit more in our respective communities. And of course, there's portions of the conference such as communicating with the government, which of course is quite important. And there's also a section where there were certain Korean associations that were chosen, and they were able to come present their hard work to the entire community of the presidents that were present. And things like that help us to promote, you know, some of the common problems that maybe all Korean associations face. You know, how do we group the Koreans together? How do we gather, you know, our community together? How do we promote the Korean culture? What can we do to improve the Koreans' lives? You know, these important topics, you know, we all face, all Korean presidents face, and I think it would be very important for us to share those ideas, you know, for the common goal. So overall, you know, and you know, just the conference, if you're the president, if you're there, it just really makes you feel appreciated. We know how difficult it is to open a conference like this, to bring presidents from all over the world. So I just felt really appreciated, and I was just very thankful for the experience.
Right, presidents of Korean associations from over 50 countries, I believe, and this particular conference ends today, that is Friday. From all the stories, perhaps, that you've heard at the conference thus far by your counterparts from different parts of the world, what story, perhaps, do you believe was quite remarkable?
Ooh, the thing that really struck me was, in the conference, there is a section where we are divided by continents and we're divided by countries, and the presidents from the respective country would come into a room and you know, share their expertise. Within that conference room, I was met with other various Canadian, Korean presidents, and without maybe sharing the exact detail or exact location, you know, there is an area in Canada where they really strived to support the upcoming Korean politicians. Now, for me personally, I thought we had to remain neutral in terms of politics, but you know, the idea was a little bit different than mine. That Korean association tells me we're not taking a political side, we are just supporting a Korean. Nothing wrong with that. So that really struck a chord with me, because there was a similar request in my area. You know, while we did our best to stay neutral and support this individual, we really took a step back. We weren't really in it with our hearts. So that is something that I'm going to take away with me back home. Another thing is, you know, when you join a Korean association, a lot of the association have a membership fee. And it's not very expensive. For us, it's $5 to join the Korean association. But there was a Korean association out there in Canada where they removed the price entirely. It is free to join the Korean association. And that also struck a chord with me, because, you know, gaining $5 from an individual, really, you know, it's not going to help us financially. But it has been a barricade, a block in other Koreans joining the Korean association. So I thought to myself, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to remove the membership fee. Maybe that will help us to gather more Koreans into our association and build a stronger and bigger community.
Right. You're going to get rid of this membership fee as soon as you go back to Calgary then, from next year?
I've already texted my directors. This is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to see what you guys think. If you guys don't like it, of course, you know, maybe I am the captain of the ship, but without my crew, I'm not going anywhere.
Right, of course not. Yes. And speaking about politics, Mr. Choi, would you say there is a greater interest in Canadian politics among Korean Canadians in recent years?
Absolutely, in the recent years. There has been a greater interest in terms of politics. Of course, I think if you're in the early 20s and if you're studying and if you're in school, your life is so busy and so chaotic that you don't have space, you don't have room in your lives to maybe delve into politics or understand politics a bit better. As people grow a bit older, into their late 20s, early 30s, we begin to realize that our lives are directly impacted by the policies that are being made and the politicians that are risen. So there has been a growing interest in our community. At the same time, Koreans are a bit hesitant to delve into politics, in my personal opinion, especially in my local community. I'm really not sure of the reason why, but I think it's important for the younger generation to take more interest in politics, and I would very, very personally like to see a Korean politician. Although we already have politicians, Korean politicians in Canada, I would like to see politicians within my local community rise up and maybe, stand up for us.
Right, maybe you could be the first one. Mr. Choi, what do you propose to ensure a stronger partnership between Korea and its related associations in different parts of the world?
I think, well, first of all, the conference that we've enjoyed for the past 3 days plays a huge role. And one of the presidents that I met actually used this word, wormhole. So, a wormhole, without getting into the technicalities, it is bringing two places that are very far into, it's a connecting bridge between these two very far places. I would say this conference is exactly that, right? We are bringing presidents from all over the world into one place. How hard is that? It's near impossible, but the government of Korea pulled it off, and we were able to meet presidents from all over the world. I met presidents from Malaysia, Singapore, Europe, China, Japan. You don't get a chance like that. So for me, a conference like this helps us to build partnership, not with Korea, but other parts of the world, and it's fantastic.
Right. And Mr. Lee, as a member of the Korean American community, are there any words that you would like to share to enhance bilateral ties?
We strongly ask for the Korean government's continued support to ensure stronger partnership with us.
Right.
Yeah.
The support of the government then to ensure greater partnership, for sure. All right, Mr. Lee, thank you so much for making time to join us live today. And
my pleasure.
Right. And Mr. Choi, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you very much.
Right. On that note, we mark an end to this final edition of Issues and Insiders, our daily panel session on various matters of global interest. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for watching.
플라스틱 사실 편리하잖아요.